Hi everybody, I'm Gio, and welcome to Insanely Zane, Part 4. Let's begin. I think I am in serious trouble. I'm Zane Smith, and I work nights at Bernie Bagels down in Vegas, and I go to college in the afternoons. I'm about as normal as anyone could expect. I'm also suffering from anemia. Too much blood loss due to late-night vampire visits that I don't even remember. Except it's nighttime right now, and I feel great and scared. I'm face to face with a vampire. He isn't a vampire like my boyfriend, Ari Rossi, but scarier. He wore an oversized dark gray hoodie, heavy gloves, and glasses, and the shadows covered him, making it hard to see details, like his brilliant red eyes or vein-covered pale skin. The blood he drank from the blood pack stained his fangs. The fact the shadows seemed to hold him aloft made him terrifying. For various reasons, I'm a human being changed into a vampire. I'm stronger, faster, and tougher than humans. I can leap and jump, but none of that is of any use against a creature of the night who can fly and control the darkness. He floated 10 feet above my head, casually sipping on a blood bag. I didn't know him. "Hi, Zane," he whispered, but his whisper was as loud as an incoming freight train. A couple of details. A vampire has been targeting me for months, slowly savoring my life. I have a very rare blood type, and vampires find me delicious. How they ever found out when I didn't know myself remains a mystery. The second detail. My brother and sister are a short distance away, staying in the Mojave Bloom bed and breakfast. My boyfriend, Ari, is asleep at the bed and breakfast, ready to protect them if needed. I think I need protection right now. "Drink," the strange vampire commanded, tossing me a blood pack. The label read A positive. I left it on the ground. I've never tasted blood. In my state, would that be enough to convert me to a full-blooded vampire? Would I give in to the evil thirst and attack the people I love? I have to get this new vampire away from my family, away from those I care about most. "I don't know who you are, and I don't care," I yelled. "You're not having another drop of my blood." I took off, running deeper into the dark desert. The element of surprise must have startled him, because he didn't immediately follow. Maybe being carried by shadows was slower than running. The further we got from my family, the safer I would feel. I dodged around boulders, leapt to hide my trail, and glanced back, hoping to see his eyes following me. He followed for a few feet, but then stopped. The vampire wasn't following me? Why? I was an easy target. Unless he was using my love for my family against me. He turned about, settled to the ground, picked up the blood pack I had ignored, and headed for the bed and breakfast. For my family. Oh, dear God, the true horror made my skin freeze. I had left my family alone. I had left Ari defenseless. The renegade vampire would only need a few seconds to wipe everybody at the Mojave Bloom bed and breakfast out. More people were in danger than just my family. In changing to a half-vampire, the only thing that hadn't improved was my stamina. The anemia had taken its toll. Still, I couldn't let that stop me. Jasmine and Elliot and Ari were in danger. I didn't understand why this was happening, but I had to stand between my family and this vampire. I sprinted, pushing myself to run faster than I had ever run before. My lungs burned, but I wouldn't stop. My family, I had to save them. Leaping over boulders, dodging past unusual desert plants, I kept the lights of the Mojave bloom in view. I must not fail. My lungs ached from the strain. My heart must be beating close to 200 beats per minute. I wouldn't stop. My mind played scenarios of me arriving too late. Jasmine and Elliot dead on the couch. Ari dead in his chair. God, the other vampire was faster than me. He had perfect health because he was a vampire, and he had just fed from the blood packs. I arrived at where I had left Ari, completely out of breath, and no weapons in hand. Ari slept, unharmed. But the other vampire stood still, like a statue, coolly looking at me. Damn him. He knew I would follow him back here. He knew I would come back to protect my family. With his senses, he must have known exactly where I was, at all times. I had to protect my family, no matter what it cost me. From 20 feet away, I jumped at him, arms outstretched, fingers becoming claws. "Stay away from my family," I yelled. That must have startled him because thunder rippled across the sky. "Stop," he whispered. Unbelievably, I stopped. "Why are you doing this to me?" I yelled. He gave me a terrifying smile that showed off his fangs and said, "Zane, I'm here because the Blood Royale asked me to be." "What?" I asked. "Fraser," Ari exclaimed, waking up. "What are you doing here?" Fraser reached into a pocket and pulled out another blood pack and tossed it to Ari. "Playing tag," Fraser said, "and I have news." "You're not the vampire hunting me?" I asked. With a frown, Fraser whispered, "No." "Zane," Ari said, "let me introduce you to my neighbor, so to speak. His hunting grounds are next to mine, but he never uses them. This is Fraser, and he's been a vampire less than a year." "You two look so different," I blurted out. "The sun will burn both of us equally," Fraser said. "What's the news?" Ari asked, changing the subject. Fraser took his seat and said, "The Blood Royale heard back from the rest of the Vegas conclave, and no one is missing or even knows about Zane. She put the word out to the western states, and all the regions of L.A. through Seattle hadn't heard either. Even the Sangre de Muerto of Mexico City responded. Somebody is threatening our vow of secrecy, but nobody knows who. Blood Drop was so mad that she threatened to come down here with her best trackers and tear this vampire to shreds. You know how Blood Drop gets." "Why?" I asked. "I'm just a human." "Rare blood aside," Ari said, "farming you is a potential vow of secrecy risk, especially since we can't find who is using you." "You're mortal," Fraser whispered. "Caught in an immortal game." "If the Sangre de Muerto gets involved," Ari said, "somebody's going to die. I'll keep Jasmine and Elliot close." "That's why the Blood Royale commanded me to help stand guard," Fraser said, "and gave me 50 blood packs. I'm set for days." Though Ari and Fraser chatted like old friends, I couldn't focus. I'd learned a couple of things. The vampires would kill anybody who threatened the vow of secrecy. And though the vampires were solitary creatures, they were more organized than I realized. Modern technology at work. Though my blood was rare, did it really warrant this kind of response? Mexico City had 9 million people, which translated to 500,000 people with AB negative blood, and at least 90 vampires. It had to be one of the biggest conclaves of vampires in the world. Did their vow of secrecy mean that much to them? Jasmine walked outside to join us, wearing her pink panda sweats. "Zane, I'm going to bed," she said, "and you should too. If I'm going to get you better, you need to sleep." Me and the two vampires smiled. "You're right," I said. "I'm coming, little sis. I'll be there in a minute." She noticed Fraser for the first time and said, "Who's that?" "Fraser," he said. "You must be Jasmine." "You look dead," Jasmine said. "Are you an albino? I've never met an albino." "No, I get that a lot, though," Fraser said. "He's a friend of Ari's," I said. "Better yet, you can trust him. He's come to help us." Jasmine put her hands on her hips and looked directly at me. "I don't care if he's an albino or here to make waffles in the morning. Zane, you're coming to bed, and that's an order." Ari chuckled and said, "Better do what she says if you want to get better. I'll be in a few minutes. Fraser, do you want to crash with us?" "Sure," he said. "We're coming, Jasmine," I said. I stopped by the bed and breakfast common room, where Elliot was watching some violent movie and said, "Time for bed." "Then go to bed," he said. "I'm watching a movie." I went to bed and passed out immediately. If I had realized that that moment was my last normal moment, I would have stared at the ceiling a while longer before falling asleep. No, I would have grabbed Jasmine and ran. It began about 4 a.m. Ari and Fraser sat in our bedroom, quietly talking. Vampires have excellent hearing because I didn't hear a thing. Neither did my sweet Jasmine. I never realized Elliot wasn't there. The Vampire Society has its own rules, which they call vows. The 3 most important being the vow of secrecy. The vow of life goes along with it. Vampires are forbidden to kill because it could bring law enforcement and hunters on them, thus breaking the vow of secrecy. The next most important is the vow of filial duty, which means obeying and honoring the local blood regent. In our case, the Blood Royale. Part of that duty is requesting permission to enter their territory. By dawn, all 3 vows would be broken. The quiet click of Ari's phone woke me, but fortunately did not wake Jasmine. "Yes, Blood Royale," Ari said. Ari was speaking to the most powerful vampire in Vegas. In the quiet, I heard the woman's voice on the other end. She spoke with an Eastern European accent, but what she said almost made me scream. "I'm sending you a link taken from a site on the dark web," she said. "The vow of secrecy has been broken." Fraser leaned in and whispered, "What do you mean? How?" "The Sangre de Muertos has left Mexico and is coming straight here. I can't get a hold of Blood Drop, but word is that she and her team are gunning for Vegas," the Blood Royale said. "Why?" Ari asked. "Check the link and you'll see," the Blood Royale said, and hung up. I slid out of bed to look over Ari's shoulder at his phone. It took a moment before it opened. What it offered was unthinkable. Somebody sold one-of-a-kind blood. Because of its rarity, usual blood tests misidentified it as AB negative, but it wasn't AB negative. It was rarer. It contained a genetic mutation on chromosome number 9, creating something hematologists identified as AB negative variant 23. According to the site, only 17 people in the world had that mutation, and the owners of the website had a source. Supplies were limited. Results were verified by a lab in Oaxaca, Mexico, though it did say that the source wasn't from Mexico. "Now I know why the Sangre de Muertos is upset," Fraser said. It didn't list a country, but I had a sick feeling that their source was here in Nevada, in this same room. I looked at Ari, fighting the panic in my heart. "Ari, do they mean me?" "Come here," Ari said. He kissed my neck, never leaving a mark, and tasted my blood. He closed his eyes, savoring it like a very rare wine. "Anything?" Fraser asked. Ari pulled me a few inches away and stared into my eyes. Was it shock? Was it wonder? Was it awe? Tell me, Fraser asked. Now I know why they're selling the blood at $100,000 for a few drops, Ari said. It's more like drinking liquid sunshine. It reminds me of the last day I was human, of the brightness of the sun. Why didn't you notice it before? Fraser asked. Zane was a little distracting, Ari said. And since I get my blood from blood packs, Fraser said, I wouldn't notice. From across the room, my sister squealed as she yelled, I knew it! Pale skin and red eyes, and I bet you're allergic to the sun, and you have a blood pack sticking out of your pocket. Fraser is a vampire. We all looked at Jasmine in shock. I thought she'd been asleep. It has to be our secret, okay? I said. Jasmine only half nodded when she said, Ari, are you a vampire too? I'm so jealous. I want to be a vampire. Ari returned her smile and said, The vow of turning says you have to be at least 21. Even vampires have rules? That sucks, Jasmine said, and suddenly frowned. Since Zane's blood is so rare, people are buying it on the black market? That's evil. You're not freaked out by us? Fraser whispered. No, Jasmine said. It's about time Zane had friends. The four of us chatted for a few minutes. Then Fraser stiffened. Ari looked at his friend, his brow wrinkling, and asked, What? Fraser looked out the window, opened it as wide as he could, his gaze softening as his eyes lost focus, before he said, I smell plastic, and something electronic. It wasn't there before. I don't smell anything, Jasmine said. You might not, Ari said. And in one quick motion, he got off the chair and stood beside Fraser. Fraser pointed into the darkness and whispered, There. Jasmine, get behind me, I ordered. Of course, her independent attitude didn't listen. She walked over to the window. I pulled her back and said, Get behind me. Why do the dead guys get all the fun? Jasmine whined. My sense of smell wasn't as sharp as Ari's or Fraser's, but I thought I detected some kind of oily scent, like oiled wood or oiled leather, a soft scent, one I barely even noticed. I'll take point, Fraser whispered, and shadows gathered around him. Be careful, Jasmine said. Ari snorted and said, If anything can hurt Fraser, we are all in trouble. Like an old one who can make people forget, I whispered. What are we dealing with? Fraser vanished into the shadows and was gone. I couldn't hear him. I couldn't sense him. My stomach ran cold. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone would die tonight. Call the Blood Royale. Tell her something's happened. I need specifics, Ari said. We'll wait until Fraser gets back. I nodded and pushed Jasmine behind me so I stood between her and the open window. Jasmine's phone rang. She pulled it out of her pocket and stared at it. It's Mom. The dim light from the screen seemed to blaze like the sun, revealing where each of us stood. Ari suddenly knelt beside the window. I knelt beside the couch, pulling Jasmine beside me. Jasmine whimpered and hid next to me. Jasmine's phone rang again, and a third time. Jasmine swiped the phone icon and put the phone to her ear. Hello? Have you been hurt? Mom yelled, but too loud. No, she said. What are you talking about? Mom seemed to take a breath. Don't trust your brother or his friends. I want you to walk out of that room and to the lobby now, before Zane loses control. You only have minutes. Mom, Jasmine said, her voice quickening, something is outside hunting us, and it wants Zane. Bad people have been draining Zane of his blood and selling the blood. Get out of there, Mom said. What's going to happen, Mom? I asked. Jasmine, run, Mom yelled, her voice echoing around the room. It happened fast, too fast. Somebody knew how to deal with a vampire, or vampires. Somebody had done their homework. The scent of oiled leather became stronger. A form appeared at the open window. A green light radiated from one eye. A low-light optic system? The form wore some kind of black body armor and carried what looked like a high-powered miniature crossbow. A noise sounded like zip-thunk, and zip-thunk, and a soft snikt came from close by. 3 crossbow bolts, each hitting something. And something else was fired as well. Jasmine gasped. Had one hit her? I didn't see any blood, or smell any. It must have been a near miss. She smelled of the sickly sense of fear and terror, but fortunately not blood. And then there was something with a medical twang kind of scent coming from her. I felt sick. They had attacked my sister. Ari jerked, falling sideways. One bolt had hit my boyfriend, mid-chest. He went down. Crossbow bolts were made out of wood. According to legend, wood to the heart shuts down vampires. A classic vampire weakness. My boyfriend had been shot. What do I do? Our attacker wasn't taking any chances. Low-light goggles meant they couldn't see in the dark, which meant they were human. They knew about vampires and had somehow tracked us to Dead Men's Butte. The vow of secrecy was broken. They shot to kill. The vow of life was broken. I'd lay odds they never checked in with the Blood Royale. The vow of filial piety was broken. These people had broken the top 3 most sacred vows of the vampires and didn't care. An intense pain radiated out from the center of my chest. What the hell? A bolt had hit me? Center chest, just like Ari? They must think me a vampire. Only problem, a crossbow bolt to the chest would kill anyone, vampire or mortal. It should have killed me. I was human enough not to have the vampire weakness, and yet vampire enough to shrug off a wound like that. I wasn't as strong as Ari, or as fast. I couldn't summon the darkness like Fraser, or the storms. There was no way I could carry both Jasmine and Ari and flee. Sorry, Ari, I whispered. I have to get Jasmine out of here. I hope he heard me because I don't have a choice. In one quick instant, before I could even think about what I was doing, I grabbed my sister, cradling her limp body close, and sprang through the remains of the window. Past the person with the low-light optic system, I fled into the early morning darkness, protecting my sister. That was when I heard the voice behind me, a man's voice, and it said, "Leave Zane to me." Was that Rodrigo? How had he known where we were? Jasmine's motionless body worried me. I checked her as I ran. A small tranq dart lay embedded in her shoulder. Our attacker had known there were vampires in that room, and humans. The anger began to flare. They had hurt my sister and my boyfriend. They had made 2 mistakes. They had supposed me a vampire, and not a dhampir. And their second mistake, they had shot my sister. Ari was still in that room. I hadn't seen Elliot since I'd gone to bed. Did that mean he was safe? What about Fraser? As powerful as he was, could he stand against an old vampire? Could I? Elliot, Fraser, and Ari. Somehow, I had to find them and keep them safe, all while protecting an unconscious Jasmine. As I ran from the Mojave Bloom, a question disturbed me. How did they know where we were? I needed help, but I did not know how to contact the Blood Royale. Ari was the only vampire I knew. Somehow, my rare blood was the key that had started all the problems. Maybe it was the key to saving us. "Stop," a man's voice said. An electric blue bolt shot down out of the sky right in front of me. I dove to the side, shielding Jasmine with my body. Every hair on my head stood on end. "The game is over," the man said. I stopped running and looked back at the Mojave Bloom bed and breakfast. A human-like shadow took form and had followed me. "I'm the most valuable person in Nevada, maybe the world. Time to use that." So I shouted, "Since I'm more valuable alive than dead, I have a few demands." Negotiating with one of the most powerful beings on the planet? I must be insane for what I'm about to do. Yeah, insane for thinking I could get away with it. The vampire known as Rodrigo smiled and destroyed my world with a single word. Forget. The end of Part 4 of Insanely Zane. Part 5 will be out as soon as I write it. I'm Gio, and thank you for stopping by my channel, and thank you for listening to my stories. I appreciate it. If you'd like to listen to more stories about gay men falling in love, come visit my channel. It's on YouTube. It's Gio Allred. We'll see you next Wednesday. Peace.